Hi viewers, this is CBSE Grade 10 Nationalism in India Part 5. In this part, let us see how the non-cooperation movement had been spread in various areas. The various methods people used to protest against the British government. First, 4 areas we are going to see in this part now. 1. The movement spread in the towns. Movement spread in countryside or villages, movement among tribal peasants, and in Assam tea plantation workers. First, let us move on to the movement in the towns. Let us see how the movement had been spread in towns. Who will be in town? Only the middle class people, like students, teachers, lawyers, traders, business people and all. Okay. So who participated in this movement in the town? Middle class participation. In the town, it is middle class participation. When Gandhiji asked not to cooperate with the British government, students refused to go to school, which is run by the British government. Teachers and headmasters resigned their job. Lawyers refused to practice law in the court. Council elections were boycotted. Foreign clothes. People refused to buy foreign clothes and foreign goods. Traders refused to trade with foreign goods. Financiers were not giving the finance to purchase and sell foreign products. So foreign trade almost stopped. Because of this, the foreign import of foreign goods had dropped to half. I mean 1 or 2 crores to 57 crore. Half, only 50% of the import had been dropped. It was a great drawback to the British government. And we had a positive effect. Once the foreign clothes were burnt and foreign goods were not purchased by the Indian people only, the people started purchasing Indian textiles. So in the Indian textiles went up. That was a positive result because of this non-cooperation movement. So in the movement of the countryside, the cities, middle class participation, students, teachers, lawyers, and council election boycott, foreign clothes and foreign goods were burnt, liquor shops were picketed. Picketed is sitting in front of the shop and not allowing the shopkeeper to open the shop. This is also a kind of protest. So import of foreign cloth halt, Indian textile went up. Okay. What is the drawback? Did it continue? No. What is the drawback in this movement in the cities? So khadi was expensive. When people stopped purchasing the foreign clothes and started buying Indian handmade clothes, khadi was expensive and it was not easy for use also. British imported machine-made clothes were cheap and best. So for a long time, the poor people was not able to maintain this khadi and they have trickling back to purchase slowly the foreign clothes. And second thing, when we tell them not to go to the British controlled schools and colleges, we should have provided them the alternative institutions for the children. That was not quickly done. It was done, but it was very slow. So how long the children could be staying at home and teachers and headmasters will be sitting without work, lawyers, everybody. They have started trickling back to schools and courts. That was a drawback in this movement. So in the city movement, middle class people participated. They boycotted schools, colleges, and courts. Foreign clothes and foreign goods were boycotted. Foreign trade at all is boycotted. And what was the drawback? The Indian textile went up for some time. Later, it was not continued for a long time because of some drawbacks. Because khadi was expensive, no Indian alternative schools were provided. So the people and lawyers, teachers, they have got it trickled back to their schools and courts. Now let us move on to the rebellion in the countryside. Countryside is village. Who will be in the village? Peasants and laborers. Peasants and laborers, what were the problems? When peasants were asked by the British government to pay high taxes and they were asked by the landlords to pay high rent, they were not able to pay the rent high and they wanted to abolish some taxes. Other cesses is taxes. So in the countryside, the problem versus peasants and laborers versus talukdars and landlords. Talukdars are the taluk office revenue department people who collect the tax from the peasants. They protested against high rent and other cesses. Abolition of beager. Beager is a kind of work which should be rendered, service should be rendered by the laborers at free of cost to the landlords and talukdars and British officials. They are expected to work, but they will not be paid. Free work. So the peasants and laborers wanted to abolish this practice of beager. The third thing, Nai Dobi Band. What is Nai Dobi Band? Nai is barber, Dobi is washerman. Dobi and washerman in the village in those days, barbers used to go to the peasants' home and they have to cut their hair and shave their beards and all. Dobi is supposed to go to peasant's house and he has to wash the clothes of the peasants and landlords. Nai Dobi, the barbers and washermen wanted to put an end to this practice. They were not ready to do this service to continue. So they wanted to put an end to this. In short, what were the problems in village? Peasants wanted to reduce the tax and rent, abolition of beager, Nai Dobi Band. In this problem, the peasants and laborers were organized by Baba Ramachandra. Baba Ramachandra was a sannyasi. He had been as an indentured labor to Fiji Island in those days. With that experience, indentured labor is a bonded labor. He was taken to Fiji. To and fro shipping will be given by the agents, and he will be treated as a bonded labor in that islands to work in plantation work or any other work. With that experience, he led the people, he led the peasants and laborers in Awadh. Baba Ramachandra, with the help of, and Jawaharlal Nehru visited Awadh in 1920 June. In 1920 June, Jawaharlal Nehru visited Awadh and with the help of, he talks to the villagers and trying to understand their grievances. He spoke with the people and he tried to understand the grievances of those peasants and laborers. He, with the help of Baba Ramachandra, they formed Awadh Kisan Sabha. Kisan is farmer, Sabha is association. They have formed Awadh Kisan Sabha with the help of Baba Ramachandra. Okay, so this was a situation, this was a movement of spread movement in countryside. What happened at last? With the support of people, with the support of Congress, people thought that they were emboldened. They started attacking the houses of talukdars and merchants. Bazaars were looted. Grain hoards were taken. Grain hoards is storing the grains without permission, without license. So grain hoards were taken in the expectation of high price. Angry peasants, they started attacking the houses of talukdars and merchants. Bazaars were looted. Grain hoards were taken over. In many places, local leaders told that Gandhiji had come, Gandhiraj would come. Hereafter, we need not pay the taxes. We will be given the land in our own land itself. So such rumors had been spread. This movement turned into violence, which was against the non-violent satyagraha. Now let us move on to the tribal peasants. Tribal peasants, how did they face this non-cooperation movement? Tribal peasants, what were the situations? What were the problems for the tribal peasants? Let us see the peasant situation in the Gudam Hills of Andhra Pradesh. Gudam Hills of Andhra Pradesh, tribals they were aware of the forest product, where the which tree, what resources are there, which animal is living near us, which animal is coming closer to us, which animal is dangerous, which animal is friendly with the people, and they know the behaviors and the way to live with those animals and forests. Everything they were familiar. Okay, so they were all silent people, without disturbing the mainstream of the society, without mingling with the mainstream of the society. They lived happily in the forest without disturbing any people. They were collecting the forest products, they were grazing their cattle, they hunted the animals, they lived happily without disturbing any people. The British government entered to the forest areas to escape from the hot sun. They have selected the hill stations and constructed the bungalows and started staying there to escape from the hot sun in the plains. That they have enacted forest tax. We have studied in this 8th standard lesson itself. Forest tax had been enacted. According to the Forest Act, the forests had been divided into protected forest, preserved forest, this and that, in which these forest acts prevented the tribals from collecting the forest products and grazing their cattle, and movement of the people also had been restricted. This created a widespread anger in the minds of the tribals. Tribals were innocent people, but if they get angry, they will go at any extreme. They will go to any extreme to attack the people. So they used this guerrilla warfare. What is guerrilla warfare? Hide and attack. Hide and attack. If the tribal people, I told you, no, they were all familiar with the locations of the locations and resources of the forest product, no. If the tribals started using this guerrilla attack, the British cannot face it. That the tribal people were led by Alluri Sitaram Raju. Alluri Sitaram Raju was a son. He was telling himself, he was glorifying himself as a, I am the agent of God. I got sent by God to save you. I have the power to predict your astrology. I have a special astrological power. I can heal your illness. I can heal people. I can clear your, I can heal your problems. And what he was telling in such a way, I have special powers. He glorifies himself, and he persuaded the people. He was inspired by Gandhiji's non-cooperation movement. He persuaded the people to wear khadi, which was Gandhiji's idea, and give up drinking, don't tell lie, and all. Okay, so Alluri Sitaram Raju was leading this tribal people in Gudam Hills of Andhra Pradesh. There, the problem of the tribals were they were not permitted to collect forest products and they were not permitted to graze their cattle. Free movement also was restricted. That Alluri Sitaram Raju was leading these forest people. He himself glorifying himself as the special power to predict their astrology, and I can heal people. And he was persuading the people to wear khadi and give up drinking. But he told that one thing, he had a different opinion with Mahatma Gandhi's non-violence. He said India could be liberated only by force, not by non-violence, he tell. What happened at the end? Gudam rebellions, and talking about Mahatma Gandhi, and they came to know about Mahatma Gandhi. When they came to know about Mahatma Gandhi and non-cooperation movement, the Gudam Hills people, the rebellions, they have started attacking the police stations, attempted to kill British officials, and carried on guerrilla warfare for achieving the Swaraj. They thought if with the force we can get Swaraj, they thought. They were instructed in such a way by Alluri Sitaram Raju. Will the British will be watching? No. The British captured Alluri and he was executed in 1924. So this movement had been put an end by the British government. Here also the movement turned into violence. Okay. Then let us move on to the plantation workers in Assam. How the plantation workers in Assam, what was their notion of freedom? For these people, the British government disturbed them by enacting Inland Immigration Act. According to this act, Within the nation itself, people were restricted to move from one place to another place. They can go only within the confined space. So Assam tea plantation, the people were working as a bonded labor. They were not permitted to go back to their home. They were not permitted to move freely within the space. For them, the freedom is if the government, the British government permitted to them to move freely within the gardens, and if they are permitted to go back to their home in a short period, in regular intervals. That was their freedom for them. Innocent people. They did not know about what is real freedom, what is democracy, what is constitution, that nothing they were aware of it. When they hear about Gandhiji's non-cooperation movement, with that boldness, some people have told that Gandhiraj would come. Hereafter, we will be given a little land in our own native place itself. So they believed this. They were told in such a way. So what they did, they also defied their authorities. Defied in the sense deny, refuse to obey, defied their authorities, supervisors, the people who have taken them to the plantation work, and like agents and supervisors will be monitoring these people. So they refused to obey these authorities, left plantations, leaving the tea plantation, and they headed home. They have started moving to their home. They have decided that Gandhiraj would come, Gandhiji will save us. We need not be obedient to these people. We need not be a bonded labor to these authorities. They felt, they believed. So they defied their authorities. They left plantations and they headed home. Farmer, they were, but they could not reach their home. On the way, when they were staying in when they were waiting in the railway station, they were caught by the police and brutally beaten up by the British government. So this movement also had turned into violence. What was the idea of Gandhiji? Non-violence. But what happened at the end? Everywhere the movement turned into violence. So we have seen the movement spreaded in four different areas. The first one is the movement in the cities and towns, middle class participation. The movement in towns, middle class participation. Student, teachers, lawyers, they refused to go back for their work. Council elections boycotted. Foreign goods burned. Liquor shops picketed. Import of foreign cloth halved. Indian textile went up. First half. Then, because of some drawbacks, the movement got its failure. Khadi was expensive and not easy to use. So people started using back to the foreign clothes. Instead of the British controlled government schools and courts, we were delayed to provide alternative Indian institutions. So the teachers, students, and lawyers trickled back to their work. Then next, let us see about the movement. How did the movement spread in countryside? That is village peasants and laborers were there. They wanted to reduce the revenue and they wanted to abolish the practice of begar. Naidobi Band, it was organized by barbers and washermen. There, these peasants and laborers were led by Baba Ramachandra. He was a sannyasi. He had been to Fiji Island as an indentured labor. With that experience, he was leading his people. Jawaharlal Nehru visited Awadh and he spoke with the people. He tried to understand the problems of the people. And with the help of Baba Ramachandra, he established Awadh Kisan Sabha. He set up Awadh Kisan Sabha. Kisan means peasants. Sabha is association. So he set up a peasants association in the place called Awadh, which is known as Awadh Kisan Sabha in the countryside. Then let us move on. What happened with that boldness when they heard that the Gandhiji comes and Jawaharlal Nehru visited the place? The people turned the movement into violence. People started attacking the houses of talukas and merchants. Bazaars looted. Grain notes were taken. So the Gandhiji, they were told that Gandhiji told not to pay tax hereafter, and you will be distributed the lands in such a way. So this movement turned into violence here in the countryside. Then let us move on to the tribal peasants of Gudam Hills of Andhra Pradesh. There they used militant guerrilla attack, militant guerrilla movement, because they were prevented from moving forest freely, free movement of forest. And when they were prevented to graze their cattle and collect their forest products, they were irritated. These tribal peasants were led by Alluri Sitaram Raju. He himself was glorifying as he had a special power in predicting the astrology and he can heal people. And he persuaded the people to wear khadi and to give up drinking. But he told that if you wanted freedom, the non-violence is not a method. We have to use force. So under his leadership, people started the Gudamils of rebels. They were all tribals, no uneducated people. No, they started attacking the police stations, attempted to kill British officials, and carried guerrilla warfare for achieving Swaraj. They thought this guerrilla warfare is a method to achieve independence. So British will not be watching this. British captured Raju and he was hanged. Then let us move on to the Swaraj in the plantation. Plantation workers, how they took this the movement. The plantation workers in Assam tea garden, for them, if they are not, if they are permitted to move freely, that is a freedom for them, which was denied by the Inland Immigration Act. They were not permitted to leave tea gardens. If they wanted to go out of the tea gardens, they have to get permission from the British government, which was rarely given. When they talked about, when they heard about Gandhi Raj, and they were told that Gandhiraj would come and everyone would be given land in their own villages. In my village itself, I will be given the land by Gandhi. So believing that, they defied their authorities, left plantations, and they have started going to home. On the way, they were caught in the police station itself by the police and they were brutally beaten up, taken back to the plantation. Here also, the movement turned into violence. Okay, today we have seen how the movement spread in 4 areas in this part, and next part let us see how the non-cooperation movement turned to civil disobedience movement. Thank you.